Caroline Leavitt just dropped a mental picture on Jerome Powell that he won't be shaking off anytime soon. See for yourself.
But unfortunately, we have interest rates that are still too high. So the president sent this note to the Fed chair.
The president slid a note to the Fed chair, cranking up Trump's pressure campaign to slash rates. Caroline came loaded, but Powell clapped back the very next day, throwing shade right at Trump's tariffs.
But, Chair, would the Fed have cut more by now if it weren't for the tariffs?
So I think that's right. In effect, we went on hold when we saw the size of the tariff.
That's why we're unpacking this circus today, not waving pom-poms for either side, just serving straight common sense. If your brain freelances, hit that subscribe button and let's dive in.
The president has consistently stated the American economy is booming, and there were so many economic analysts who said that this president's policies would drive our economy down, when in fact we have seen the opposite. We've seen a massive deregulation campaign take place. We've seen inflation completely diminished from where it was under the reckless spending and the bad policies of the previous incompetent administration. I would remind the Fed chair, and I would remind the entire world, that this is a president who was a businessman first, and he knows what he is doing. He has a proven economic formula that worked in his first term as president, and it is working again. The one problem that remains is high interest rates for the American people. The American people want to borrow money cheaply, and they should be able to do that.
Outside of immigration, Trump's biggest brag has been the economy. Sure, tariffs rattled Wall Street, but zoom in on the numbers and the panic looks more like clickbait. Just days ago, the New York Fed reported inflation easing, job loss fears dropping, and income expectations rising. Solid receipts. If Biden had these stats, the media would have thrown him a parade. That's why Caroline rolled in with charts like a teacher catching Powell without homework.
Unfortunately, we have interest rates that are still too high. So the president sent this note to the Fed chair today. And if you look at this chart, this is a chart of all of the interest rates of many countries throughout the world are all paying lower interest rates than the United States of America, which has one of the hottest and strongest economies in the world. The president sent this note to the Fed chair. It says, Jerome, you are as usual too late. You have cost the USA a fortune and continue to do so. You should lower the rate by a lot. Hundreds of billions of dollars are being lost, and there is no inflation. And the president is right. There is historically low inflation thanks to his policies. And we will continue to drive down the cost of living in this country for Americans. We will continue to deregulate.
The big push for rate cuts boils down to one pitch: cheaper loans to juice the economy. But cut too soon, and inflation comes back like a sequel no one wanted. That tug of war dominated last month's Fed meeting. Policymakers leaned toward cuts, but chose caution. Powell even took the same message to Portugal: relax, no speed running this call.
The U.S. economy is in a pretty good position. Inflation has come down close to 2%. We're at 2.3 headline, 2.7 core.
Chair, would the Fed have cut more by now if it weren't for the tariffs?
So I think that's right. In effect, we went on hold when we saw the size of the tariffs, and essentially all inflation forecasts for the United States went up materially as a consequence of the tariffs. So we didn't overreact. In fact, we didn't react at all. We're simply taking some time. As long as the U.S. economy is in solid shape, we think the prudent thing to do is to wait and learn more and see what those effects might be. And again, they haven't really shown up. So for now, we're waiting.
Here's the twist: countries hit hardest by Trump's tariffs, Europe, Mexico, and others are slashing rates like it's haircut season. Meanwhile, the Fed's still waiting it out. Other economies are loosening up, the U.S. is tapping its foot. So is this careful strategy or just political theater with better lighting? That's where Caroline doubled down.
You outlined Jerome Powell and the note that the president just sent to him. There are many who believe that Powell has been politicized in a lot of different ways. The president has not been shy about acting on things that he believes in. Why not just fire Jerome Powell and put in somebody that is going to lower rates? Why wait?
Well, it's a good question, and one you can ask the president, because that's a decision for him to make. But you're right to point out the politicization of the Fed, and it's very unfortunate for our country. But Jerome Powell cut rates numerous times ahead of the election when Joe Biden was in this Oval Office, but now he refuses to, and the economy is in a much better place. So there really isn't a good explanation for that, and the president is rightfully calling attention to it.
The Fed's supposed to be neutral, but Powell's tariff remarks sounded more like politics than policy. It's not the first blur in 2020. They rewrote their mission to prioritize jobs over inflation, sprinkling in activism language. Powell even said racial gaps played a role. Call it inclusion, call it virtue signaling, either way, Trump's been tallying points, cranking up attacks, even hinting Powell should resign.
Jerome Powell, who you've been pressuring to lower interest rates, he's facing accusations of lying to Congress, which is a potential crime, about the opulent.
Well, then he should resign immediately. We should get somebody in there that's going to lower interest rates.
Do you want congressional
Why don't
Republicans
you call for his resignation?
Do you want congressional Republicans to investigate and pursue?
It's okay with
punish?
me. I think he's terrible. I think, look, we're paying, I call him too late. T-O-O, too late. Like Too Tall Jones for the Dallas Cowboys, right? Too late. He's always late. But he wasn't late with Biden before the election. He was cutting him like crazy. It didn't help too much, did it? But he was cutting him like crazy before the election with Kamala.
This isn't Powell's first pressure test. Back in 2019, Trump's frustration hit a fever pitch, and speculation swirled about Powell's job. Asked if he'd resign if the president demanded, Powell's answer was blunt.
Some of the president-elect's advisors have suggested that you should resign. If he asked you to leave, would you go?
No.
Can you follow up on, do you think that legally you're not required to leave?
No.
And now the comments get juicy. First, they look less like policy debate and more like a shove to make the Fed follow the White House playbook. Second, the Supreme Court already ruled Trump can't just fire Powell at will. That's why some analysts think the admin is setting the stage, either crafting a loophole or pressuring Powell until he walks. So what do you think, high-stakes chess match, or political theater with better popcorn?